I welcome you all to Manu Law Classes Current Affair Analysis. So here we have important news from SCO. Apart from that, we have news from economic section, that is fiscal deficit, and from the polity section about the disqualification ground. And apart from that, we have news from the NATO and also from the Anemia Mukt Bharat Abhiyan Anemia program. So we have all these important news in this article, in this newspaper. So we will cover all these news one by one. So let's start our discussion with the very first topic, that is about SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. As we all know that India is hosting SCO summit in virtual mode. So basically the important point in this discussion, which is being highlighted in this particular news article, is that it is more representative and multipolar world order in the global interest that leader of Shanghai is forming. So here, one thing which is important from the static aspect is that you have to comment it out in comment box that which Central Asian country is not a part of SC. You have to name that country in the comment box. Now, as we all know that Iran has been inducted as the 9th and the latest member of the SCO. So it is also participating in this particular summit. And apart from that, as we know that India has already stated that it will stay out of the SCO Economic Development Strategy 2030. And also it does not have that much of confidence in the China's border and road initiative. So it will also not be a part of all these things, the SCO Economic Development Strategy 2030 and also the BRI. Here in this article, it is said that SCO has now countries like China, India, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia and Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. These are the member of SCO. You have to tell that which Central Asian country is not a part of it. Apart from that, what agreement which will be signed in this particular summit is that New Delhi Declaration, which will basically outline the areas of cooperation between the SCO countries. And also there will be a joint statement on countering the radicalization. And also, India will offer its expertise on digital payment interface for the digital transformation initiatives. But India will not participate, that is Economic Development Strategy and the BRI. Okay, so please keep a note of all these points in your mind. Moving further toward our next important news, that is a news on disqualification. As the news article says, in Supreme Court, Uddhav camp says, Speaker delaying disqualification process. So what is important for us is that disqualification under the 10th schedule or the anti-defection law. We will understand the basic aspect of anti-defection law in this particular analysis. First of all, what are the conditions under which a member incurs disqualification under the anti-defection law? We will discuss it first. First, if he voluntarily gives up the membership of the political parties on whose ticket he is elected in the house. So this is the first condition, if a member gives up the membership of the party from which he is elected. Second condition, if he abstains from voting or vote against the party from which he is elected, that is the second ground. And third is, if any independent elected member join any political party, and this is a kind of dal badal or here shifting allegiance, we can say, if a person who is elected from one party and he changes his party after getting elected, so under that condition anti-defection will be applicable for him. And if any nominated member joins any political party after the expiry of 6 months, so he will also be disqualified under anti-defection law. So please remember all these 4 points, that if a member who is voluntarily giving up his membership, if he abstains from voting or vote against the party from which he is elected, or if he join any other party, or if on the any nominated member is joining any party after the expiry of 6-month terms, then he can be disqualified under anti-defection law. Now the question of disqualification under the 10th schedule, the question is decided by the chairman In case of Rajya Sabha, it is the chairman of Rajya Sabha. In case of Lok Sabha, it is the speaker. Or in case of any legislative assembly, as we are discussing the news from states, will be a legislative assembly. Here, the speaker will decide the question of disqualification and his decision is final. Okay. After taking the decision, they can approach to the court, but till the time the decision has not been announced, the decision of the chairperson is final. Apart from that, we all know that it was not a part of the original constitution. It was introduced through 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, which was in the year of 1985. So it was introduced, the anti-defection law or the 10th schedule was introduced through this particular amendment. So these are the important features with regard to the disqualification procedure under the 10th schedule or the anti-defection law. Moving further toward our next important article, that is on the topic of NGT. Okay, we will move further. Here, basically, the article is that Green Tribunal orders SOP to curb pollution at hospital. So what is important for us? That is the static aspect of NGT or the National Green Tribunal. As we all know, NGT is a specialized body that was formed under the NGT Act 2010. Okay, it was formed under the NGT Act 2010. And why it was formed? To expeditious and effective disposal of the cases related to environment. So, in order to effective and timely disposal of the cases, this particular body was introduced and it relates to the matter of protection and conservation of the environment, forest and other natural resources. India is the third country to implement such law. Remember this point. And before India, Australia and New Zealand. Australia and New Zealand. They have implemented such kind of law. So you have to remember India is the third country to implement such kind of law like NGT to establish a specialized environmental tribunal for the effective and timely disposal of the environment related cases. Okay. Apart from that, NGT have 5 places. Its center or its head is at New Delhi. And apart from that, Bhopal, Pune, Kolkata and Chennai. These are the regional offices. And New Delhi is the principal office. Okay. So remember these important points from this particular topic. Moving further toward our next important article, it is dealing with a static aspect or we can say from the history part. President paid tribute to Alluri Sita Raman Raju. Now we will discuss in detail about Alluri Sita Raman Raju. He was basically an Indian revolutionary who waged a war campaign against the British colonial rule. Okay. His nickname is Manyam. Remember this name? Manyam Viradu. इसका मतलब होता है हीरो ऑफ जंगल. क्योंकि इनका इतना ज्यादा हीरोइक टाइप का एक्सप्लॉइट्स था अगेंस्ट द ब्रिटिश, तो इसीलिए इनको हीरो का टाइटल और मान्यम विरडू का टाइटल मिला. अब इनके जन्म की बात करें तो ही वाज बोर्न इन द स्टेट ऑफ आंध्र प्रदेश एंड he involved in the anti-British movement because British introduced the 1882 Madras Forest, under which the Britishers basically what they did, they restricted the movement of Adivasis and also they restricted the traditional Podu cultivation which the Adivasis performed. So because of that, the Adivasis or the Alluri Sita Raman Raju, he was like very much angered because of this move and that's why he launched a campaign that is named Rampa Rebellion. Okay, or we also say it Manyam Rebellion. It was launched in the year of 1922. Okay, so remember this point. It was his 25th birth anniversary which was celebrated in Hyderabad, and here our President Draupadi Murmu, she paid a kind of tribute to Alluri Sita Raman Raju, and that's why his news is very famous. So you have to remember the static aspect of this particular news. Moving further toward our next important article, that is from the economics about the fiscal health of state. Under this article, the author is trying to convey that though after seeing the analysis, we have an idea that fiscal deficit, it is improving in various states. But if we see the part of fiscal deficit, that is the revenue deficit, it is not improving that much. So we will do a detailed analysis of this particular news. Here basically you have to just concentrate on the trend. Don't focus on the number. Just concentrate on the trend. What is going on, how revenue deficit is increasing, in which state revenue deficit is increasing, and just analysis of trend is important, not the number. So here basically the author is saying that after the COVID-19 pandemic, at union level, the fiscal deficit declined from 9.1% of GDP in 2020 to 21 to 5.9% in 2023 to 24. And also the state fiscal deficit, it was 4.1 in 2020 to 21 and it declined to 3.24 of the GDP in 2022 to 23 period. Now here basically for the major states, it is expected to be 2.9%. So here we can see that the fiscal deficit is declining. First of all, we will understand the term what is fiscal deficit. We know in a very simple term, we can say the expenditure of state and the earning or the revenue it gets. Revenue minus the expenditure is the fiscal deficit. Okay, so it has two components. First one is the revenue and second is the capital. Revenue is, we can say that day-to-day expense or the money required to run the government. Capital is something which is like investment, like building some monument or building some infrastructure, that is capital expenditure. So if we analyze the trend based on this particular article, we find that here there are few states, like there are few important 7 states like Andhra Pradesh, Haryana, Kerala, Punjab, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu and West Bengal. Here the fiscal or the revenue deficit specifically, it was expected to be 27%. Means it was about to have 27, but their fiscal or the revenue deficit part of the fiscal deficit, it is around 40.9% in Andhra Pradesh, 50.9% in Haryana, Kerala has 60.4%, Punjab has 70.7% and Rajasthan has 39.7%, whereas Tamil Nadu has 48.8% and West Bengal has 40%. So here we can see that their target to achieve this was 27%, but they are exceeding. Overall, fiscal deficit is declining, but the revenue deficit is not declining. That is a bad trend. Means that government is spending more on its daily expenditure or to run the government schemes and all, instead of making the infrastructure or instead of making expenditure on the capital part. Okay, so here we will see further data that basically here the author is saying that why this fiscal deficit is improving. The reason we improved GST tax collection, higher tax devolution due to the beyond central reserve revenues, and also the non-GST revenues, they are also showing the signs of recovery. That's why even after the COVID pandemic, their fiscal deficit is decreasing, but their revenue deficit is increasing. So this is a bad trend, we can say, and the government has to work on this particular thing to reduce the revenue deficit. Now, what the author is suggesting, what the government can do, here the author is suggesting that interest-free loan to the state should be given by the union government so that they can reduce the revenue deficit. Apart from that, the possibility of substitution of the state's own capital spending can be eliminated with getting of the interest-free loan, and also it will prevent from the diversion of the borrowed resource to the finance revenue expense. So these are various recommendations which the author is giving to reduce the revenue expenditure. Okay, so this was about this important editorial article. Moving further toward our next article, it is talking about basically an antibiotic and how it is helping in treating an antimicrobial resistant bacteria. You might have heard about few terms like superbug, or we can say Delhi bug, because it is very prominent in Delhi. We used to take a lot of antibiotics, and this antibiotics or the bacteria which we are treating through antibiotic, they are becoming resistant. Why they are becoming resistant? Because we know that mutations are happening in all these bacteria. Through mutations, they are basically adapting themselves against all these antibacterial or antimicrobial antibiotics. So that's why basically these antibiotics are not effective in a long run on all these bacteria. This particular problem is being highlighted by WHO also, as they are saying if the trend will continue, then soon there will be a time that we will not have any antimicrobial resistant antibiotic to treat all these bacteria. So this was in news because a particular antimicrobial antibiotic named cefamide or zidibactam. It has been invented by India, and it is a very promising medicine because it is working on extensively drug resistant Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So basically it is working on antimicrobial resistant bacteria, those bacteria on which other antibiotics are not working. So this is in news. So just remember the name of the medicine, that is serapamide or zidibactam. It is in news, so you have to remember it. And apart from that, as we know that whenever any discovery is going on or whenever we are introducing any antibiotic, it has to undergo various trials. So these trials are divided into stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3, in which a sample of people are tested, on which the medicines are tested. In stage 2, larger sample of people are being tested. In sample 3, it is done on a large scale or on a wide scale, like a country or something. And on fourth trial or the fourth phase, it is done like it is introduced into the market, and here research is being conducted so that the study can be done to understand their working. So here basically this particular antibiotic, it was under the phase 3 trial internationally. So it has not yet been verified or it has not yet been safe to use. But because the condition of this particular patient was very much like pathetic, so that's why this particular antibiotic was given to this patient. So you have to remember the name of the antibiotic and about the AMR or the antimicrobial resistance, because the government, the WHO, all are concerned about this particular resistance. Moving further toward our next important article and next important thing, that is open market sales scheme domestic. The whole story is that the Karnataka government issued an scheme, it was named Annabhagya, in which basically 4.42 crore beneficiary will get 5 kgs of free rice per person per month. So here basically the government promised to give this much of rice to them, but after the FCI also committed that it will also help the government to supply these rice under the open market sales scheme domestic. But the center had different plan and they basically discontinued this particular scheme, and now the government is in trouble as they have already promised about giving this much of rice, but they are unable to do so. So the whole news is about this particular scheme, that is open market sales scheme domestic. Under this particular scheme, the surplus stock of the wheat and the rice at a predetermined price is given through e-auction in the open market. Now this can be purchased by the private party, also by the state government, in order to improve the supply of the fruit grain and also to control the price line. So this important scheme help in ensuring that food grains are available to all the people in India and their supply are ensured and their price are controlled. But this particular scheme has been discontinued by the central government as they say they have to control the inflation. So that's why they are discontinuing this particular scheme, and this is troublesome situation for Karnataka government as they have already promised that they will provide free grain to the people of Karnataka who are under the Antyodaya Anna Yojana or who are the PHH card holder. So this particular scheme was also being discussed in the second article, where basically the author is saying that the major source of rice for Karnataka was center open market sales scheme, and through this the FCI is selling its surplus grain to the state governments. And here basically two things are countered. First one is the supply is ensured to all the people, and second thing is that price is controlled. Now, to control inflation, the government is discontinuing this particular scheme, and apart from that, the author is also saying that the FCI supply of rice for ethanol blending, it has been continued to increase. So at one time this scheme is being discontinued to control inflation, but on the other hand the ethanol blending program, under which the food grains can be used to make ethanol, and they will be blended with the petrol in order to reduce the amount of or the import of the petroleum. So this is being continued, but this scheme is being discontinued. So this is what this chart is showing, and this is what these things are representing. Moving further toward our next important article, that is related to the anemia. Now you have to tell me that when Anemia Mukt Bharat strategy was launched, in which year Anemia Mukt Bharat strategy was launched, and who are covered under this particular strategy. So here basically first we will understand what is anemia. As we know, anemia is a condition under which the RBCs in the blood decreases. This causes what? This causes reduced supply of oxygen. This causes reduced supply of oxygen, and if blood loss occur in this condition, in anemia condition, then there is a possibility of death of the patient. So basically here the article is about that NFHS survey. It is removing a question of anemia from its questionnaire. So this is the main problem. Here the author is discussing that how anemia and pregnancy are related, how a woman who is giving vaginal birth delivery, they can be a major target or they can be a major patient for anemia because a lot of blood is being lost. So here basically the author is saying that wherever there is in whichever countries like Nigeria, Tanzania, Zambia, Pakistan, and also in India, where the birth is through the vaginal birth delivery, so the postpartum hemorrhage, it causes a lot of blood loss, result in anemic condition among women. And this anemic condition, if the question is being removed, then this can be a serious problem, as we cannot analyze the exact health status of a large section of population, that is pregnant women, adolescent women, and in specific of girls. Now what is important for us is to discuss various schemes which has been launched by government for the pregnant women, as this article is focusing on pregnant women. So what are the various schemes which has been launched for pregnant women to curb anemia crisis? The first is Suman scheme. Just note down these schemes because they are important. Suman scheme is Surakshit Matritva Ashwashan Yojana. It basically provides assured, dignified, respectful and quality health care at no cost and zero tolerance for the denial of services for every woman and newborn visiting public health facilities, and end all preventable maternal and new birth. Second scheme is Janani Suraksha Yojana. Here basically is the demand, promotion and conditional cash transfer scheme for promoting institutional delivery so that the postpartum blood loss can be reduced and the child and mother both are in safe condition. The third scheme is Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram. In this, every pregnant woman is entitled to free delivery, including the cesarean section, under the public health institution, and they will be given free transport, free diagnostic, free medicine, and also their iron level will be ensured. Okay, that they have proper iron level, they are consuming proper iron level and proper diet. The next scheme is Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan. Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan. This particular scheme provides pregnant women a fixed day free of cost, assured and quality antenatal checkup by a specialist or medical officer on the 9th day of every month. Then we have an important scheme, that is Lakshya scheme, which basically improve the quality of the care in the labor room and maternity operation. And we also know that Poshan Abhiyan is launched for a very big section of people, and under this we have Anemia Mukt Bharat strategy. So you have to tell me when it was launched and what is its target year in the comment box. And this Anemia Mukt Bharat strategy, it has various parts. Like in this, it will provide food or the enriched or fortified foods to people so that they can have an assured level of iron and all the micronutrients. Moving further toward our next important article, that is from the section of UCC. Now you have to know about the basic terms of the UCC or the Uniform Civil Code. That Article 44 of the Directive Principle of State Policy is related to Uniform Civil Code. Just remember this part because it is very much in use. So you have to understand this important article and you have to remember this important article. Moving further toward our next important news, that is Delhi-based think tank Center for Policy Research loses tax exemption status. Here basically the news is about the Income Tax Department has cancelled the tax exemption status of the Center for Policy Research, which is a leading public policy research institution. So here basically under the FEMA Act or the FCRA Act, FEMA Act, the registration of the CPR for 180 days, and also this was eligible for receiving any foreign fund, but it is being said by the authority that few persons, the department alleged that the association had payment to a person who had not filed their personal income tax. So that's why their status of being the tax exemption is lost and they have to pay tax now. Moving further toward our next important article, that is on the topic of government to combat child trafficking in border area and set up rehabilitation center. We all know that, so this is very important. We should know about this, that India is a source and destination of child and women trafficking. The major source countries are Nepal, Bangladesh and Myanmar, from where the men and the girls, from where the women and the girls are trafficked. And India is also a like source country from where they are, the girls and the women are being trafficked to various other countries. So here basically the child trafficking, to combat the child trafficking and women trafficking issue, the center has decided to build a special infrastructure to combat these issues. The Women and Child Development has been providing various financial assistance to all the states and union territories under the Nirbhaya Fund, which are basically set up to strengthen the anti-human trafficking units in every district of the country. So here the funding is also provided for setting up these units in the border guarding forces by the BSF and the Sahastra Seema Bal, and also there are total of 788 AHTU anti-human trafficking units established so far. Okay. Now you also know about the Mission Vatsalya. Mission Vatsalya scheme is basically to help those children who have been trafficked. So Mission Vatsalya is dealing with that particular thing. It is for the protection and welfare of children who have been targeted. Okay. Now we have already discussed this particular thing, open market sales scheme. This is being used under this FCI grant surplus food grain to state or the private stakeholder, and through this the supply is also ensured and the prices are also under control. Okay. Moving further toward our next important article, that is related to international relation or the international event. Stoltenberg will remain NATO helm for another year. The NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, he will remain in office for another year. So here basically he will be the Secretary General for one more year. Discussing about who is Mr. Stoltenberg. So he was a former Norwegian Prime Minister who has been NATO's top civilian official since 2014. Last year, his term has been due to expire, but he was extended, and again he will be extended for one more year. So this is important appointment. You should know about him. Jens Stellenbosch. Moving further toward our next important article, that is related to sports. Changte and Manisha, they were named AIFF Players of the Year 2023. India and Mumbai City FC winger Lianzuala Changte, he was named AIFF Men's Footballer of the Year, and also the 26-year-old Mizoram player, he featured 12 matches during the international season for India. Apart from him, Manisha Kalyan, she was named AIFF Women Player of the Year after AIFF annual general meeting here, and she belongs to Punjab. So basically, she has been named under the AIFF Player of the Years. So this is all for today. These were the important news. Stay tuned with Manu Law Classes for further update. Thank you.